I really want to talk about how complex work has gotten and the fact that it's going to continue to get more complex very rapidly. And when I talk about how the world is changing in profound ways, I'm not just talking about the technology tsunami of the last 2 decades. There are fundamental shifts occurring that redefine how humanity views the world and their place in it, what we expect from both the work we do and the lives we live. The pandemic, combined with the exponential acceleration of the digital age, brought us this once in a century moment that has caused us to collectively recalibrate. And so we're moving from, if you remember that acronym VUCA, which was really volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? So we're moving from the VUCA world to what's being called the BANI world: brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. Now, so let me explain a little bit on this. Brittle. So if you look at our once solid systems, they're on and talk about all sorts of systems, not just our digital systems, but in a lot of ways our physical systems as well, our physical infrastructure, our roads, bridges, those kinds of things. But on the digital side, it's even more pronounced in a lot of ways that these systems are on the verge of collapsing under the weight of innovation and change. We see this in almost every people practice as they're going through looking at all of their technology systems within the business, really from the back to the front, and finding that these systems, which really do so much for us, are on that verge of we need to evolve them, right, before they drive us to that, and not to be all doomy and gloomy, but that verge of collapse. I think a lot of us feel that. But look at anxious. So anxious. Every choice matters. We're living really in what I'd like to call a pandemic of anxiety, triggered by all sorts of complexities and complications around us. It doesn't help that we just came out of a once in a century pandemic, right? And that's been a big trigger for a lot of this. And it's kind of natural for humans to try to think they can get that behind them really quickly and move forward. But you see this in the day-to-day a lot of times, this just sort of pandemic of anxiety and a lot of mental health issues that revolve around that. And so we overall are just kind of in an anxious state of mind in some respects. And then nonlinear. Cause and effect are no longer connected. Small decisions can have significant and consequential impact. Just over a year ago, the entire airline system came to a grounding halt in the US because of a text file. Just one text file, .txt, brought the entire system to a stop. So that goes back up to brittle, but it also goes to this nonlinear aspect as well, right? Because a small decision that someone made on a text file can bring an entire system to a halt. Incomprehensible. So we're getting accesses to fire hoses of information that are actually problematic in a lot of ways, because we get all of this information and a lot of it creates distrust and wariness, because how do you trust it? And misinformation is rampant and a big challenge for us. So as we move from that VUCA to BANI world, and I put on the screen here the person that created it. You could Google this gentleman and get a lot more information about his thoughts around this. But it's a framework that articulates the complexity of a now unstable, chaotic world.